Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Tusk Top.
Hey, it's 10 a.m. and this is Utah's best sports radio.
Say my name.
You're locked on to Scotty G and the coach, Tim LaCombe, presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
And I want to welcome you into a brand new edition of Scotty G and the coach here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. No Scotty G, no the coach. But we're here to take you through this 10 to 2 hour. I'm Alex Napoles. Sitting across from me is the great Jake Hatch. You hear him every day on the station from 6 to 10 on DJ and PK. Jake, how's it going, man?
Doing well. I'm making it clear. I'm taking coach's role today, okay?
Yes, you are the coach today.
By the way, we said if USA won that it was going to be an Alex Napoles takeover.
That is
Well,
true.
that's what's happening.
That is true. Lloyd
And
said.
we were going to kick Scotty and the coach out.
Well,
See ya.
So now here we go. 4 hours of Alex Napoles and Jake Hatch.
should be fun.
And only 30 seconds of soccer.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the other thing about this. Apparently, you've cut down his 60 seconds.
He doesn't actually know this yet.
Oh.
Yeah, no, you're.
I thought you were aware of
aren't
this.
adding 30 yet. You're going to actually be getting rid of 30 because of what soccer.
What happened?
thanks.
What happened to after they win? We get to,
No.
we add a little bit
Yeah,
of
but
time.
after that, those shenanigans, the red card shenanigans. Sorry, I've lost all respect.
you've now been
you
penalized.
are losing 30.
Oh,
so this is probably like 10 of those 30 right now. So I would get moving.
Well, hey, the good news is that the U.S. men's national team won last night. They got the 2-0 over Bosnia. They're moving on to the next round. They'll take on Belgium on Monday in the round of 16. Massive win for the U.S. last night.
That was not your cue to talk more soccer.
No, then that's it. That's we're gonna leave it there.
And we move along.
Jake, how's it going, man?
Doing well. How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for sitting in and
Absolutely.
and hanging out with me today while Scotty and Coach are out.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. Obviously, this is a crazy time of year. I know that early July, typically we're all gearing up for Independence Day, and for good reason, but you have NBA free agency, NHL free agency. We just came out of 2 drafts, which are fairly impactful for both of the local franchises here. So, yeah, it's been a pretty hectic week, all things considered.
The NBA season the NBA offseason seems to be just as entertaining as the in-season stuff. Everything that's happening off the court, whether it's the trades, whether it's the moves, whether it's the free agency that we've just seen this week, there's never not an entertaining moment in the NBA.
No, and that's the thing that they've endeavored to build, because we all know that the NFL owns the sports calendar 24/7, 365. That's just the way they've built the league. Well, the NBA is trying to echo that, and they really kind of do own this time of year. Free agency, the trades that go down, and that's the kind of the fun part about this is one of those big trades. Now, there are, I think, 2 what you call almost blockbuster trades out there in the NBA. One of them involves the Utah Jazz.
Absolutely. We'll get to the one that involves the Utah Jazz because Walker Kessler and the Utah Jazz is your starting lineup here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's time to kick off the show with the biggest headlines of the day. This is your starting lineup on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
So the Utah Jazz move on from Walker Kessler via sign and trade with the Los Angeles Lakers. They trade Walker Kessler to LA for unprotected first-round picks in 2031 and 2033, and first-round swaps in 2028 and 2030. That is quite the haul for Walker Kessler. This is a guy who the offer was on the table for Walker Kessler to remain as a member of the Utah Jazz. I think every Utah Jazz fan, including everybody that I've seen online and everybody that I've talked to, having the idea of Jaren Jackson Jr. lining up alongside Walker Kessler next season was incredibly tantalizing for all the Jazz fans.
Sure.
But now you quickly pivot, you move on, and Walker Kessler will now become a member of the LA Lakers.
That's the interesting dynamic with this, is that the Jazz currently, as the roster currently stands, don't have what I would consider a true viable 5. That was what Walker Kessler was supposed to be for this lineup. And we had Ben Anderson on with DJ and PK about an hour ago, and the first thing, I think DJ asked him a question like, so what's your biggest concern for the Jazz right now? And he said, the center position. Because Walker Kessler, outside Victor Wembanyama and Rudy Gobert is probably the other. Like, there's probably, those are the three premier defensive centers in the NBA right now. And to lose him obviously is a concern, considering you have Yusuf Nurkic, and apparently they're going to sign Jackson Hayes to man that center position. And it's probably going to require them, playing some center by committee. That may involve Jaren Jackson Jr., who, to his credit, is a former Defensive Player of the Year in the NBA. He's just not a true five-man. He actually fits better at the four. I'm curious to see how the Jazz handle this, but at the same time, you make the point that they got an absolute haul. Yeah, they outdid the likes of the Boston Celtics. They outdid Luka Doncic himself in terms of the haul that came back in return for that trade. And it shows yet again that when Danny Ainge and, in this case, Austin Ainge get involved in a trade, they're going to get everything that they can get out of you.
Walker Kessler got more draft picks than John Morant.
Yeah.
Got more than Luka Doncic, which is insane world to even think about that. But here we are with the Utah Jazz and the Angels making good business. Now, again, I think it's unfortunate that the Jazz have to move on from Walker Kessler. I think every Jazz fan would have liked Walker Kessler to be a part in the Utah Jazz uniform, but the question now quickly turns to, and I think the good news is that you don't necessarily have to have a right away answer at the five position. Massive to get Yusuf Nurkic back. Now, looking back at, he leaves some money on the table to stay with the Utah Jazz, to return, to signs a new contract, and will stay a member of the Utah Jazz. And that's probably a bandage for the time being. But the good news is the Jazz now turn the corner out of this rebuild and into a team who can possibly be competitive. The five position isn't it's not. You don't have to have an answer immediately coming into this season.
You don't, but we may need to readjust expectations for this team accordingly due to that. DJ brought up the point that he kind of been targeting this team being a top six, like an NBA playoff team that doesn't have to play in the play-in. Like he said, that was the expectation. And I think with Walker Kessler theoretically in that lineup, you absolutely could say that's the goal here for this team. But I think you look at it now, and DJ brought up the point, maybe you're looking at maybe top 8. Ben Anderson, obviously tuned into Jake and Ben in the afternoons from 2 to 7. He pointed out, he said, hey, if you're just trying to win in the NBA right now, you can probably be top 10. You can be a play-in caliber team. And that's what the Jazz, considering all the moves they've made and everything they have said, they're pushing to be at minimum. So, while I would like to think this team in time is a true top half of the Western Conference contender, to your point, that's probably not likely based on how the roster is probably going to look at the start of this season. Now, you get to the trade deadline.
That conversation might change. Yeah,
let's say that there's a 5-man that comes on the market, he wants out, and the Jazz are able to use their haul of assets they've got. They got this war chest. I think it's 10 first-round picks up through 2034 right now and you throw them at one of those teams, bring that guy in, then you may readjust and say, okay, now you got the guy to man the middle there, and you make that push for the top 6, top 4. But for the time being, still expectations are you're a play-in team, but maybe not a team that avoids said play-in.
And the trade for Jaren Jackson Jr. continues to look better and better for the Utah Jazz because you do have some flexibility there, right? Mm-hmm. He doesn't have to be tethered to the quote-unquote 4 position. He doesn't have to be tethered to a certain spot on the floor. There is some flexibility there with Jaren Jackson Jr., who can slot into the 5. You can have some look between Jackson Hayes, Yusuf Nurkic, and Jaren Jackson Jr. kind of splitting those minutes, splitting that time. There is flexibility there with Jaren Jackson Jr. and Larry Markkinen, but ultimately you bring up the picks, and I think ultimately you can look maybe at the trade deadline if something's not working out. If somebody becomes available, then you look at using some of the assets that you acquired for Walker Kessler to make a move to improve that roster. I think right now you can get through with just the bandage and the flexibility of JJJ and Larry Markkinen as you push for the playoffs. But once this team kind of really turns that final corner into this is a team who can go and compete for the NBA championship, then you start having a different conversation, which is unfortunate because I think with Walker Kessler on this roster, it probably would have accelerated that a little bit more, considering the talent that would have been on that roster, considering the talent that would have been had Walker Kessler re-signed with the Utah Jazz. But now that conversation changes a little bit without him.
Well, and it's something I read last night, and Ben also pointed it out this morning, is that with no Walker Kessler, the Jazz may play some more 5-out alignment, where Jaren Jackson Jr. and Lauri Markkanen are very capable of playing on the perimeter. And that, without a true center anchoring you on offense, you can afford now to have Keontae George, Darren Peterson, and Ace Bailey on the court together
at the same time
with the other two big men and play a true 5-out. And they had success with that last season at points, running that 5-out alignment. Now, does it make you vulnerable defensively? Sure. But if you want to see more of Darren Peterson and Ace Bailey playing together, in some ways, this move actually opens up that opportunity for that, because there was a thought of, okay, is it Darren Peterson or is it Ace Bailey who's your sixth man? That was kind of, I think, the conversation that we were all anticipating probably having at some point, assuming they were going to re-sign Walker Kessler. And until yesterday, I think we all thought, okay, they're probably going to match whatever it is unless it's just completely outlandish. Well, things changed, and now that conversation morphs into, do you actually start a lineup that involves both Ace Bailey and Darren Peterson in that starting lineup? You may yield some stuff defensively, but offensively could be pretty fun.
Absolutely. I think just thinking about a backcourt mix of Keontae George, Ace Bailey, Darren Peterson, it sounds really great as far as you consider the roof or I guess the ceiling that the young talent has, but they've got to improve defensively. And I think coming in for Darren Peterson, right, one of the big things that stood out to me during the pre-draft process, and one of the things that stood out to me about Darren Peterson was his potential at being an incredible two-way player, because he already has a big step defensively, but now you need to see that from Keontae George, and now you need to see that from, of course, Ace Bailey, who's going to be entering his second year in the NBA.
That's why Walker Kessler, I think, was so important to this lineup, is the fact that
there was some stability there defensively.
Yeah,
right? You knew what you were getting defensively out of Walker Kessler. I don't know if you're at a point yet where you know what you're getting out defensively from a Keontae George on a winning Jazz team and an Ace Bailey on a winning Jazz team.
And to put it kindly, the problem with Ace and Keontae is they have been below average defenders at best so far in their NBA careers. And you need guys who can stop guys on the perimeter. Darren Peterson has that ability to be a stopper. He can play truly two ways. He has shown that already, both at the AAU EYBL circuit in high school and obviously during his time at Kansas. He has shown that ability. Now, can he do that for 82 games? TBD on that front. But you do, you're right. Ace Bailey, Keontae George, without having, the Walker Kessler, the Rudy Gobert, the true big man that cleans up your messes on defense, you have to... There of the Olay defense for Utah Jazz perimeter players has to go by the wayside.
Right. And now without Walker Kessler, I'm also looking at the rebounding numbers.
Well, yeah.
I'm looking at rebounding and seeing where Jaren Jackson Jr. can improve as far as the rebounding goes, and where this team can find some extra rebounds, because that you lose a lot of that without Walker Kessler.
You do. And Will Hardy's been very clear that he expects the rebounding to be a team-wide effort. He doesn't exempt anybody. Trust me, you and I have heard enough of these post-game press conferences. Lloyd's heard them. That he expects guys to put effort out there, and rebounding is about effort. Honestly, that is like the number one thing about a team that rebounds well is there's an effort level that's required of it. And we're talking Keontae George on up to Lauri Markkanen. They all have to put the effort out there. And yes, without a Walker Kessler, a true rebounding machine, it's going to take more of a team-wide effort. I think Yusuf Nurkic, in that respect, he actually, for everything that he's not, he's actually a pretty effective rebounder. He's a bit of a sieve defensively. It's just who he is at this point in his career. Doesn't move as well laterally, even though he didn't move well laterally much overall in his career. But he can rebound well. And it's going to require, if you're near the basket and that shot goes up, turn, get your body on a man, and get that basketball.
Do you think Walker Kessler ever gets to the levels that I think everybody thinks that he can get to now with Luka Doncic and the Los Angeles Lakers? Because there's a lot of pressure to deliver in LA.
You mean the Vanilla Thrice, or the snow, or the
whatever they're
the
calling
Snowtime Lakers?
Yeah, right.
No, here's the thing: Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves are going to make life pretty easy for Walker Kessler. They are two very, very good lob players, and that's what Walker Kessler thrives on, is guys who can deliver the ball where it needs to be, so it's easy for him at the rim. And that's what, especially in the case of Luka Doncic, he has shown throughout his career that he's very good about playing with elite big men. And if you believe the reports out there, that's what he essentially told Lakers brass. Get me an elite 5-man. And Walker Kessler looks like he's on that arc to become one of those guys. I really do think that defensively he's right up there. He's one of the best in the entire league, even though how old is Walker now? Is he 23, 24?
I think 24, yeah.
Yeah, but he's still very early on in his career. He hasn't even reached his official prime, what you would imagine. So there are still levels of his game to come, I imagine. And yeah, the Lakers, considering the amount of money they're going to pay him, Doncic, and Reeves, I think they've tied up $125 million between those three alone. Yeah, expectation level in LA, Walker Kessler, welcome to the big leagues, son. Because you saw the TMZ video, right?
Yes, at the airport.
It was LAX, I think. Yep. And that's just like a smattering of what he can expect to face now almost on a near daily basis with call him paparazzi, call him media, whatever you want. That's going to happen to him all the time.
That's the territory of what comes with being a Los Angeles Laker.
Yeah, you are a big you-know-what.
Oh, yeah. As far as, the move for the Lakers go, too, they've tied up a lot of capital in this. Yeah. And now, I think if I'm not mistaken, they don't have any picks to really be flexible if this doesn't work out.
So, yeah, if I recall correctly, the NBA's collective bargaining agreement allows you to trade first-round draft picks as far as 7 seasons out. That is so it resets every year, obviously, because right now we're in 2026, so you can trade 7 seasons out. The Los Angeles Lakers for the next 7 seasons, as it currently stands, do not have a first-round draft pick. They have traded every one of those. And yeah, so they are banking on this iteration of what they're building here. They've also added Colin Sexton, Quentin Grimes also signed on yesterday, if I recall.
Yes.
One other player that they signed out of free agency. This is their squad, for better or worse, Alex. Now, do you get down the line 2 or 3 years and suddenly realize, hey, we need to make a move to acquire some assets to reboot it in a sense? Yeah, you may have to do that. But for I'd say next 2 seasons, this is the core of what you're working with in LA.
And I'm wondering what the concerns is as far as Walker Kessler's health goes down the line, right? Because we still haven't seen Walker Kessler, I think, get to the levels. And, of course, how much of that was the Jazz pulling it back a little bit?
That's the thing.
To focus on the youth movement. How much of that was a little bit,
His shoulder was a concern. Remember, he threw it. It sublexed or dislocated. Lloyd, do you remember what it was? Subluxation? Was it dislocation? What was the?
Yeah, I know it was a labrum.
Yeah, but it
was dislocating. I think.
But it was happening because he was just moving his arm. It was that loose. So he had that surgery. I think long term, I'm not that concerned about it. I think honestly, a lot of the concerns about his durability is more a symptom of what the Jazz have been going through for the past 4 seasons, where, let's be real, they've been massaging lineups to put it kindly.
Right.
And yes, the shoulder was a concern, the fact that he was throwing it out without doing much, but he's had that surgery. By all accounts, based on what folks like Austin Ainge have said, he's been diligent in his rehab, and assuming everything worked out on that front, I think he's going to be just fine health-wise. But in this day and age of the NBA, you've got to play, I don't know, the era of the 82-game Iron Man is over.
Right.
It's like 7.
And I think the
rule is 65 to be eligible for awards.
Right.
I think the era of like 70 games is you're considered an Iron Man. I think Walker's capable of that. Do you agree with that, or do you think it was something different?
No, I agree with that.
Okay.
I agree with that. I think ultimately a little bit was the Jazz trying to make sure to pull it back a little bit to make sure that they were in a good spot to focus on the youth movement. But I don't think anybody can in this era of the NBA. I think going after a player and thinking that a player can go 82 games in a season, maybe it's not as realistic as it once was.
How is it not? These guys' bodies are so. You're telling me these guys are in better shape than, say, like a Cal Ripken Jr.?
Well, that's the thing about
the ultimate Iron Man, by the way.
Yeah.
Go look at that record if you don't know about it, kids.
Yeah, sure. And I think you make a good point there, Lloyd, is that
the reason they did it, I mean, it was for the fans. They played for the fans, and it's just, I get it. We're in a different world now.
But it was a pride thing as well.
Absolutely.
There was, and I will say, I think in this modern day of the NBA, it's so physically taxing in the league now because there's so many elite athletes. And I'm not saying that eras past didn't have this. The style of basketball is you get out and run. Mm-hmm. It's just everybody tries to run in this league. And it's like you get rebound, your outlet pass immediately, and you're off to the races. And I think it puts a heavier toll on guys' bodies, even though I think the modern NBA player's body, like I guess by and large, on average, I would say is in better physical condition than at any point of eras past for the NBA. I just think that the game demands more now than it did in eras past.
Yeah.
But you make a good point, Lloyd. Like we, I think the collective three of us on the show today, we grew up in an era watching, and Alex, I know you're younger than Lloyd.
Yeah,
and
I'm
I.
not going to put Alex there.
fair.
Alex is he is
I'm in my
a
own
youngster.
category.
By the way, do you know how many seasons Cal Ripken Jr. played? I'm sure I'd had to look it up because I couldn't remember.
No,
how many
not
straight
off the top of my head,
straight
no.
seasons?
How many straight seasons?
Just take a
Lloyd?
guess.
4.
What?
No,
I don't know.
17.
17.
You really not know about Cal
straight
Ripken?
I don't
seasons.
know.
I think he's young, but that's okay. I'm not going to hold it against you.
Okay.
He played 17 straight
That's
seasons.
impressive. That's impressive.
And we also
2,131 consecutive games without missing.
yeah.
That's insane.
And you're not going
to see that
No,
in this
no, no.
era.
You're not.
Because I think, looking at it, especially from like the Walker Kessler perspective, where he hasn't had a season where we've seen him completely go through without having some type of injury concern. Why would I have Walker Kessler empty out his tank in the 82 game season when there's the playoffs that I need that you should be focused on?
Well, and that's the thing is, Lloyd and I, we grew up in the 90s watching Carl and John, speaking of Karl Malone and John Stockton. John missed a grand total of, I think, like it was like 30 some odd games his entire NBA career. And it was like one of them was a 24 game span.
And most of that might have been one of his last seasons.
But no, it was that broken leg. Remember, he had
That's
it was like a
right,
24 game span that he missed
Yeah.
because of broken leg. He would miss maybe 1, maybe 2 games. And there were multiple seasons where eras past of NBA fans like myself grew up in the 90s, watched these guys play. It was a pride thing. They were playing for the fans. They showed up every single night. It's a little different now.
Yeah,
And
load management.
It's not even that it's load management. I know that's it's become a very derisive term to use that to really get after people. But I really do think that Walker Kessler, we're going to see truly what he's made of. Because the expectation with that contract he's got now, he's got to deliver.
Absolutely.
Because LA has staked a lot on him.
Absolutely. There is a lot going on in the NBA when it comes to NBA free agency trades. Obviously, the big one yesterday was Jaylen Brown, and we'll dive into that next because the Philadelphia 76ers are making a move. They go all in on Jaylen Brown. Cole Bagley coming up at 11:05, our Utah Mammoth insider here on KSL Sports. He'll jump in, and he'll talk about what a massive day it was for the Utah Mammoth yesterday, as far as picking up some signings, picking up some trades in picking up some signings in free agency, picking up some trades, and then we'll have Andy Bailey jumping on the show at 12:05 to talk NBA. That's coming up later on in the show. Again, coming up next, we'll talk Jaylen Brown and the 76ers here on Scotty G and the Coach. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Mammoth and the Utes, Cougars, and Aggies. When it comes to sports in Utah, we've got you covered. This is Scotty G and the Coach, Tim LaCoe, presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back in 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Scotty G and the Coach, Alex Napoles and Jake Hatch sitting in for the day. What a busy day it was yesterday in the NBA. But the biggest move that stands out.
Before you get there, this is your first song. Today's your day. Today's your
my
playlist.
day. Yes,
Don't just run right past it.
Today's
your
my playlist day. And,
how deep we gonna get with your playlist?
Oh, not very deep. I wasn't very creative today. No deep cuts. No deep cuts for me today.
Well, that's a shame.
We'll start with Jimi Hendrix, who I absolutely love and adore. Great music.
One of the all-timers, no doubt about it.
Absolutely. What a busy day it was in the NBA yesterday. The plenty of moves in free agency, plenty of moves as far as trades goes, but the biggest one, of course, one of the bigger ones that stands out aside from the Walker Kessler move is, of course, Jaylen Brown, who now has a new home. But let's rewind it a little bit. Let's go back to the Giannis Antetokounmpo trade, because this was a major talking point, because the Celtics were rumored to be in the Giannis sweepstakes. It was rumored that it was going to be Jaylen Brown who was going to be a part of that deal. And immediately, right, once he goes to Miami, one of my first thoughts was, when that all went down, was how does Jaylen Brown return to the Boston Celtics locker room, knowing that the Boston Celtics were shopping him around for Giannis Antetokounmpo?
Well, and he had kind of already, I guess, I don't know, dictated the terms, probably wrong.
Somebody who's been as vocal as he's been.
Oh yeah, he's a Twitch streamer.
As opinionated as he is, like of course, this was it was gonna turn out to in the end, it was going to come down to this.
I swear this guy spends more time on Twitch than almost anything else in his world. And the thing about it is, you're right. There was no way that Boston, as often as he'd been brought up in trade rumors, there was no way. You had to make a move. Now, do I understand why Boston fans, including one illustrious Bill Simmons, are miffed that they traded one of their franchise pillars to one of their arch rivals?
Right.
And by the way, didn't get near the haul that you would expect maybe a guy who he was 6th in NBA MVP voting, if I recall correctly, this year.
Yes. The Celtics would not have been in the position that they were in this season without Jaylen Brown.
No. And
simple as that.
Yeah, so to trade him, to one of your arch rivals, and to not get the haul that is probably befitting of a guy of his status. Yeah, I get why Boston fans this morning are like, what's going on here? And the other thing about it is, people claiming that Philadelphia, I saw somebody say, I don't remember who it was, Philadelphia got gifted a NBA Finals run with him joining the 76ers. And my immediate thought was, I understand kind of why you say that on paper, but we're also talking about the Philadelphia 76ers and guys like Joel Embiid, who you want to talk about, the term load management was coined for Joel.
For Joel Embiid, yes. So the 76ers are sending Paul George 2 first-round picks, one that in 2028 and 2031, and 2 second-round selections that come in 2028 and 2030 to Boston to complete the deal. I think, on paper and just looking at this from the perspective of the Philadelphia 76ers, you move on from Paul George. And I think that's huge. Obviously, there was the situation with him last season where he gets suspended for some time, and the massive contract that he was on. You finally move on from that, and I think that's great news. You bring in Jaylen Brown, who obviously is a step up to Paul George, but I just don't know if this is one that puts you over the hump if you're the 76ers because of the injury history and the concerns with Joel Embiid.
It'll be interesting. Now, we all know that the East is a much, I don't know, it's probably, okay, easier is probably the right term. It's an easier chance for you to climb to the top of the heap in the East than it is in the West. Will this put Philadelphia over the top? Probably not.
I have a hard time seeing it.
Because I know that New York, losing Mitchell Robinson dings them a little bit because he goes to Boston now. By the way, congratulations are in order to Mike Conley, Mountain Mike himself. He's going to be the 14th all-time NBA player to play 20 seasons by virtue of signing with the Celtics. So congratulations to Mike. He was really good when he was here. I really enjoyed his run with the Jazz. But Boston's not going to take much of a step back, it doesn't feel like, because if Jason Tatum's back at the peak of his powers, well, he is, in many people's eyes, superior to Jaylen Brown. So you would think that what Jaylen Brown and the Celtics accomplished this year, he's capable of maybe doing that and a little bit more. New York's not going anywhere as the defending champions. I think there are teams like Indiana. Remember, the Pacers made the NBA Finals, and they took a step back this year because of injuries, the Achilles to Tyrese Halliburton. They're not planning on staying down. They're planning on jumping kind of right back into the fray. Giannis is now in Miami, teaming up with Bam Adebayo, and you can guarantee that with the way that Miami constructs their roster and the way that they just kind of run things, Miami's not. So this is not putting Philadelphia at the top of the heap in the East.
I would have a hard time seeing it. There is, I like Tyrese Maxey and I like VJ Edgecombe, and I think obviously there's still levels to be unlocked with VJ Edgecombe. But aside from Maxey, aside from Edgecombe, and aside from Jaylen Brown, I just keep coming back to Joel Embiid and him never being able to get through the injuries, him never being able to be available for the 76ers, and I think ultimately that's going to be a detriment because in the playoffs you learn that depth is massive, and you learned, I think, too, without Joel Embiid, there's questions there for at the 5 for the 76ers and the depth that they have aside from Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe and now Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, so I understand why Boston had to do what they did because obviously there was just no way that you were going to maintain a good locker room.
Working relationship with Jaylen Brown after you said, hey, we're going to trade you off for Giannis. And obviously Giannis goes to Miami.
But I do wonder, it's in some way why they didn't send him west to a team out here this direction to get him out of the East. But hey,
to a direct rival.
And that's the thing. And by the way, a team that just knocked you out of the playoffs. Like Philadelphia, that was an epic 7-game series. And I know that Philadelphia flamed out shortly thereafter, but they did knock you out of the playoffs. And then you're like, hey, by the way, do you want to have one of our franchise players here? Like, so it's going to be very interesting. I actually like, and you mentioned this at the start of, of today's show, about the fact that the NBA offseason, it never disappoints. There's just so much going on with it. The way some of these teams are remaking themselves, there is a ton of intrigue. Because, yeah, Philadelphia, on paper, they've got a really talented roster. Now, I thought kind of the same thing when they added Paul George. It was like, oh, they got some dudes. They added VJ Edgecombe, who I thought was one of the best rookies, if not the best rookie in the NBA this past year. But then Miami's like, hey, Giannis wants out of Milwaukee. Okay, yeah, we'll take him, and we'll pair these guys up. The way some of these teams have remade themselves, and that does include the Utah Jazz to a level here, Alex, there is a ton of intrigue going into this coming NBA season.
Absolutely. Looking now too at some of the other moves happening around the NBA. Obviously, the one that stands out is Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
The Kawhi Leonard experience is now done and over with for the Clippers.
I forgot about Toronto with Kawhi.
Right, after all the drama and after everything that came out with the aspiration and
that's not done yet.
No, and that's far from over. The Clippers decide to move on from another guy who hasn't necessarily been as available as I think everybody in the Clippers organization has wanted him to be, and now he heads back to Toronto, a place where he ended up winning a championship.
Yeah, the Kawhi thing's an interesting situation because obviously we're all kind of sitting here saying, hey, Adam Silver, are you ever going to, get to the bottom of what happened with that whole deal? And was it salary cap circumvention by the Clippers? Like what? And now that he's moving to another team, by the way, yeah, you mentioned he had one of the best single runs as a player leading Toronto to the NBA championship. He's going to rekindle, I think, some of those memories of 2019 for Toronto fans. My concern is, does he have a Pascal Siakam? Because remember, Siakam was very, very good, kind of being the Robin to his Batman during that run. Now, Siakam is with Indiana, and him and Tyrese Halliburton are expected to drag Indiana back into the fray when it comes to being a playoff team in the East. I'm interested to see what Kawhi does. Like, honestly, is he got that motivation to go out there and prove himself once again? Or now that is he 35 now, 36, somewhere in that realm? Is Father Time finally starting to catch up?
Yes. I think, I've liked the reaction that I've seen online from Toronto Raptor fans. Everybody's excited that they get back Kawhi Leonard, but the question that I look at when I look at this trade for Kawhi Leonard back to Toronto is, does nostalgia win you championships? And the answer is no.
Typically no.
And the answer is no. And I think now you're looking at a Kawhi Leonard who is 35 years old and, again, hasn't been as available as the Clippers have wanted him to. I just don't see how this one – talking about the East again, right? It is a relatively weaker East than the Western Conference, but I don't see how this pushes you over the top or how it really improves the Toronto Raptors. It is a big upgrade over Ingram, I will say, again, when he is healthy.
Okay, based on this conversation we've just had here, I feel like the East has got a bunch of teams that are all level with one another, if that makes sense. They've all got one or two star-level players. The question is, which of the supporting casts will push them over the hump here,
Absolutely.
Because Toronto, Indiana, I really do think Indiana is a major bounce-back candidate. Assuming Tyrese Halliburton is back to what he was, then Boston, then New York, obviously the defending champs, you can't...
Yeah. There's a reason you go out and you sign Landry Shamet for 4 years.
Yeah.
There's a reason you go out and you sign Jose Alvarado for 3 years, as far as the Knicks go.
Miami. And then, oh, by the way, a certain team that just took one of our locals, speaking of the Washington Wizards, they've got A.J. DiBonsa. They've got Anthony Davis for the time being, because there's those rumors out there.
Whether or not he's still there at the trade deadline, we'll see.
But they also had Trae Young.
Right.
So the East feels like it's very much, it's kind of like an even playing field right now on paper across the East. We'll see which of those teams emerges at the top and kind of gets pushed over the hump. I look at the West as having some more clear delineation. I do think that San Antonio and Oklahoma City are the class of the West. They're kind of the top dogs. Los Angeles Lakers want to be in that mix. The Utah Jazz want to kind of be in that next cut underneath those and at some point rise to that same level. So it'd be kind of an interesting dynamic here where, I'm just thinking in my head, East seems like it's very much the top 8, 9, 10 teams could all be on a very similar plane, whereas the West's got some more. I think there's a clear-cut identity of what the West stacks up as.
I'm curious what happens to the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what moves.
Hey, our good friend Trey Fitzgerald, obviously.
Yeah.
He is very frustrated with the way that Denver's trending.
I guess, the lack of moves from Denver. I am curious to see what happens to the Houston Rockets,
Sure.
and whether or not that Kevin Durant trade actually gets them over to gets them to the spots where they actually want to be. And then I'm curious to see what happens with Ball and Anthony Edwards in Minnesota,
That's a good point,
and putting your chips in for, quite literally putting all your chips in for Ball.
LaMelo Ball, Ant, and then Rudy Gobert playing there's some intrigue for all these teams. That, by the way, that's the fun part about this upcoming season is 82 games to really kind of see how it all shakes out. Now, you also have to acknowledge that injuries will play a role.
That's just
looking at
what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, sheer dumb luck sometimes. Now, Alex, when we come back, it's a great question posed by one of our listeners, questioning your youthfulness.
Uh-oh.
It involves the NBA, it involves the Utah Jazz, and we'll see if you know about this individual and why he is thought of so very highly in NBA circles. So how about we get to that next?
Absolutely. The KSL Sports Zone and Beehive Mills are honoring people that impact youth sports in our communities. Nominate the youth sports volunteer for the Beehive Mills Hero of the Week at kslsports.com/contest. We'll get to that, and we'll get to what you may have missed coming up next here on Scotty G and the Coach. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The best radio in Utah is right here. This is Scotty G and the Coach, Tim LaCoe, on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back into Scotty G and the Coach. I'm Alex Napoles. Jake Hatch sitting in for Scotty and Coach today. Jake, you had a proposition at the end of that last segment.
Okay, so this is a question that comes from our good friend, Classless Skip. Now, obviously, he is a longtime listener, and he and I go back and forth on things from time to time. And it goes back to the debate we had earlier today, because you didn't know about Cal Ripken's epic Ironman streak. 17 straight MLB seasons, 162 games, played forever. I vividly remember sitting down the night he broke that record, had that trot around Camden Field. You probably watched it too, Lloyd, I would imagine, when he broke that streak. Well, our good friend Classless Skip, bringing it closer to home, said this. On the subject of games played streak, there's Booner, speaking of the legendary Ron Boone, who his X handle or Twitter handle says 1,041 straight. He played 1,041 straight games over 12 and a half seasons. He played some 84-game seasons and I think an 86-game season. Crazy. Does Alex know about that one?
I did know about Ron Boone.
Okay.
I did know about that streak. And
the Booner.
I did, obviously, because he and David Locke do a fantastic job on the radio calls here on the KSL Sports Zone. And so I did know about, and I was aware about Ron Boone's streak of 1,041 consecutive games.
He played a really long time, and credit to Ron Boone, by the way, he is still sharp as a tack. Every time I talk to him, he's still
absolutely
on it. And he's a legend in every sense of the word, and we're lucky to have him in this community.
Yeah,
in fact, the Rons in general, Ron McBride.
Good point. Ronnie Mack too. Yeah,
we got a good run on the Rons right now.
We do,
because they are sharp as a tack.
They are
both of them.
But it's fun to. Legendary player, but obviously he's become just an incredible broadcaster over the many, many years he's done it.
We just had him on last week after the NBA draft. He jumped on with Scotty and Coach, and he was super, super excited about Darren Peterson.
Yeah.
And the culture, I guess, that the Will Hardy has built. And again, someone has a front row seat to all that, and to be able to talk about the culture that Will Hardy has established in that coaching staff. He had nothing but great things to say, and so that, I think, of course, as Jazz people listening who are Jazz fans should be really excited for what's to come for this team, who's now on the verge of moving on from this rebuild. What you may have missed, it was obviously a big day yesterday for the NBA, but the NHL is also making some big moves, and a couple of them include, of course, the Utah Mammoth. There are a couple players who are leaving Utah, and there are a couple people who are coming in, including Trocheck.
Vincent Trocheck.
He's coming to Utah.
Yeah, gold medal winner with Team USA in the Olympics. Considered to be one of the best two-way forwards in the league. He doles out hits as much as he scores goals, apparently, and he's up there in age. He's 32. He's going to be turning 33 here, but he is still considered one of the preeminent centers in this league. I think this move, and I'll get your thought on this, Alex, is GMBA, as we like to call him, GM Bill Armstrong, trying to upgrade that center position because it's become so critical to have that spine in the modern NHL and having a guy like him who can win. By the way, he's a very, very good face-off. He wins a lot of face-offs, and that's something that they've struggled with the Utah Mammoth. And
to talk about the face-offs too, they re-signed Kevin Stenlund,
yes,
who's going to hit free agency, but he comes back, signs a 1-year deal. So that you do have now Trocheck and Stenlund who can get you some good things in the face-off.
They're both very good penalty kill guys as well.
The return for Trocheck, because this one was a trade,
yes,
made with the Rangers, and so the return for Trocheck ends up being Sean Durzi, a 3rd-round pick, and Cole Baudouin.
Now, Durzi is a top 4 D-man, so obviously losing him hurts, but Baudouin is one of the 2 or 3 best prospects amongst a very strong group of prospects the Mammoth have hoarded. And it's not, hoarding is it's almost a derogatory term, but they've just done a very good job about having these assets. And to move Cole to New York in this trade, I think it speaks a lot, to what it took to get Vincent Trocheck here. And I think the comfortability, is that a word I can use here?
Yes.
That with guys like Tija Ginla as other prospects. Baudouin is also a forward, much like Tija Ginla is. And the thought is that Tija Ginla is a franchise cornerstone type talent upcoming here for the Mammoth. You have Logan Cooley, obviously, who looks very much that part as well. Yeah, you had probably to move on from some of these prospects at some point. Maybe Baudouin ends up becoming an absolute stud for the New York Rangers. I'm going to be very happy about that. But I think that the Trocheck move is a move to keep the Mammoth in the mix now, but at the same time, keeping a lot of that powder, to use that expression, dry here for them. Because Tija Ginla's coming. There's a lot of other young talent out in that prospects pool. But by the way, it's noon today, right, Lloyd? That prospects camp scrimmage, their wrap-up of their prospects camp. There's a lot of guys. They're going to be coming here in future years. But Trocheck keeps them relevant in the current time, even though he's a little bit older. But the nice part is the future looks extremely bright still for the Mammoth.
Yeah, the way that I look at it, I think you hit the nail right on the head, is you hear about the Mammoth's farm system, and you hear about the prospects that they have coming out of the pipeline, and you hear, all these great things about them, and eventually you have to think about how they turn into the NHL level, how you get them on the roster, or potentially use them to help entice a team to say, hey, okay, we'll give you Trocheck in exchange for one of these prospects. And so the prospect that goes out the other way is Cole Baudouin, which is unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate to lose a prospect like Cole, but you also get a pretty good return back in Vincent Trocheck.
Yeah, Trocheck, he's not the biggest guy, but he plays bigger than he's listed, 5'11", 187 pounds. But the other big move they made yesterday,
Anders
Lee. Now, he is the New York Islanders captain, and he's older than Trocheck. But the way they structured his deal, it's a 3-year deal overall, 5.4 AAV, average annual value on the contract. But as was pointed out by Puckpedia this morning here, Alex, he is getting $6.75 million this year, and it goes down from there in terms of the overall salary. Because he's age 35, he'll be age 38 as this contract ends. The good news in all of this is that the Mammoth, in this agreement with Anders Lee, there are no trade protections here. So he is, if for whatever reason you need to utilize him as a trade piece, that he doesn't have a way to block it.
There you go.
So that protects, I think, both him and the franchise. He gets his money. Franchise also has the capability of being able to stay flexible with that roster.
Ultimately, it's a 3-year, $5.4 million deal for Anders Lee as he makes his move over to Utah. A busy day yesterday again for the Utah Mammoth.
Yeah.
Some of the names going out: Ian Cole, Kerfoot, Vanacek, Dursey, Baudouin, some of the names coming in, Trocheck, Stenlin, and Lee. We'll get Cole Bagley's thoughts on how all these moves worked out for the Utah Mammoth. We'll get some of his thoughts from that development camp. Obviously, the development camp happening right now. There's a lot of eyes on some of those prospects, and we'll get Cole Bagley's idea on some of those guys coming through that Utah Mammoth pipeline that we were just talking about potentially making a move to the NHL and maybe becoming a part of this Utah Mammoth sooner rather than later. That's coming up next. Cole Bagley, our Utah Mammoth insider, here on Scotty G and the Coach on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.